Cryptocurrencies are essentially a form of digital or virtual currency which rely upon means of cryptography for ensuring that the transactions that take place there are secure. Now, this is created in a manner that it is a medium of exchange through which a computer network that is not entirely reliant upon one central authority, such as a government or bank, can uphold it and maintain it. Typically, fiat currency or legal tenders are reliant upon central bank authorities for the purposes of maintaining against a set of gold reserves or any other asset which is maintained by the nation state and by the central authority. As opposed to this, cryptocurrencies are not reliant upon any central authority and the value is fluctuate upon the supply and demand basis. One of the major risks that are very apparent from the point of view of a consumer or a business is that the nature of it is essentially cross-border in nature. There are transactions happening between two jurisdictions, which could be conflicting or which could be friendly jurisdictions or not. The fact that in case there is a crime or in case there is an issue, it could be from a consumer point of view, it could be from a money laundering point of view. So the fact that there could be a disjoint or there could be a difference in the cross-border cooperation in terms of the enforcement actions that can be taken is what is one of the major risks. Now, another issue is that since there is no framework which is either governing or regulating cryptocurrencies per se, there is no grievance redressal mechanism that you have which is entirely focusing or is exclusively dedicated towards cryptocurrencies. Coming to the law that exists in the country, we have to understand that it's still largely unregulated. However, for the very first time last year, we saw that the virtual digital assets were included within the ambit of the Finance Act. And it came by way of ensuring that crypto transactions or transactions which involve virtual digital assets, which go beyond cryptocurrencies, become taxable. Because all of this is happening on the internet, the IT Act becomes one of the trigger points, and you can rely upon the rights which are afforded under the information technologies laws, which would include that if it's a website which is hosting, a service which is provided online, they have to have a grievance officer which interacts with the consumer. They also have to ensure that the data of the consumer which is available on the internet stays in a safe and secure manner. They also have to, in addition to this, there's a recourse against cyber crimes, which can range anywhere between a fraud committed on a cryptocurrency platform to theft of finances, to identity theft and any phishing related concerns. That is also something that is taken care of with the IT Act. India has actually been one of the first countries to create a specific determination about how to treat cryptocurrencies in the form of bringing them under a tax regime. Now, while jurisdictions have been reluctant to impose any reactionary restrictions on cryptocurrency trading, because there is a lot of investment which has already been made by individuals. I mean, if I can quote a figure, up until recently, the figures are upwards of $2.3 trillion globally. So, in view of these facts and the fact that there's so much of transaction that's already taking place, and because of the fact that these are not centralized ledgers, these are cryptocurrencies essentially relying upon blockchain technologies in one way or the other, and is rooted in decentralized ledgers, it is being perceived, or it has been perceived as by most of the nations to be something that's they're not able to understand how to tackle this in the form of a law. However, in India, we have seen that because a deregulated currency challenges the authority of the central banking authorities, which is actually responsible for controlling inflation and the stability of the banking and financial system, we have seen that it is in the interest to ensure that consumer interests are regulated and are protected in the market, and to ensure that there is a greater transparency which is afforded to the ecosystem, as well as the consumer who is getting into this ecosystem to either buy or to sell. With this intent, we see that the government has moved towards bringing in crypto players under the PMLA regime, or to ensure that these players become part of reporting entities as the current law stands as. The law defines certain types of entities which by default should become reporting entity. In addition to that, there is a provision within the law, within the statute, the PMLA statute, that the central government can notify such other entities or institutions which should also become part of reporting entities. One good thing about this is that in India, we have seen that India is actually leading and has kind of become the pioneer in terms of digital finance activities. So when there is a higher uptake of digital finance activities, it is possible that a lot of people will find it nifty or will find it very effective to invest in cryptocurrencies. And this will again lead to that can take place in terms of consumption of other form of virtual digital assets. And like I just mentioned about NFTs, fan tokens, and the sort. Because there are global players or global entities or platforms which allow a lot of transactions. Either if you're looking at particular sectors, I can say that if you're looking at digital gaming, we are talking about media, we are talking about sports, there are this so much of uptake of transactions to take place between the consumer and the seller or the market seller or the solution provider in cryptocurrencies that there will be an increased uptake, there will be an increased transaction, there will be increased interaction of the individuals in the country in terms of buying this or selling it or using it for the purpose of transactions in the stead of fiat currencies. While again, this will not erode what we are seeing in terms of the tradability or the usability or fungibility of fiat currencies, this will just be an additional impact or an additional impetus which will come to users, which will come in handy for them to get into these transactions globally. So, inclusion of cryptocurrencies under the PMLA laws will require cryptocurrency players to improve their transparency measures, will also require them to start maintaining records of their transactions, will also sufficient details, KYC measures for the individuals who are participating in this ecosystem, and will somehow ensure that they also check for the sources of the funds which are getting looped into these transactions. Now, the transactions will have to be maintained in a manner where the organizations will be required to provide ready access to government agencies, law enforcement agencies, and where it is required and whenever it is required to be as a reporting entity to report such activities which they feel are suspect, which they feel are concerning to the Financial Intelligence Unit. So, in terms of how people or how the industry players are responding to the development is that it is mostly positive. And this is not just from the people that we work with, this is also the general temperament that we are seeing from the sound bites that we find in the media. Now, the good thing about this is, since the time that this is something which became taxable, and I'm not saying this just because, from a legal standpoint, I'm saying this from a business standpoint as well, where we want to get things done, that people, the industry players had themselves already geared up to ensure that they comply with whatever KYC measures that were afforded to them under the RBI rules. Now, in addition to this, when this has happened, some of them were already in between. Let's say on a scale of 0 to 10, they were already at the level of 7 or 8 in terms of compliance. And this is across multiple sectors. If we look at cryptocurrency, like I mentioned, media and gaming and sports are three major sectors which are deeply or greatly impacted by these introduction of tokens, NFTs, and fan tokens, utility tokens in the form of virtual digital assets. So all these companies are already doing their bit in terms of ensuring KYC measures. Now, as they are getting scoped under PMLA laws, where it's not just about mentioning, or maintaining KYC details of their consumers, when it's about ensuring that the trail of the funds are also kosher and are in no way in violation of any of the laws of the land. As a reporting entity, they are now a step closer to what the compliances are required.